Hello, friends. Here we are at our last video for this small group series. A hard bleed, but here we are. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of your spiritual journey and your Lenten journey from being stuck, hopefully, to unstuck. There is one more message in this series. We'll do that this weekend at Palm Sunday, but this is the last small group video. Your group can decide what you're going to do going forward. Well, we're hoping next week is Holy Week, that you and your group will participate in the night of prayer. That's on next Thursday at March 28th. It's from 6:30 to 1 o'clock in the morning. You can come and go. Communion will be served as a part of that Monday, Thursday experience. The first two stations of the night of prayer are in the center, so you want to enter through door 1, 2, or 3 into the center, and then we'll guide you from there to the prayer garden and for your experience. So hope you'll consider that. This is why we're doing the last video this week, so to give you that chance to be a part of that, your small group and your families. And then on Friday night, we have our Good Friday service at 6:30. Also, just hoping you and your entire family, your small group, will be a part of that together. Now, this entire Unstuck series has been about our own personal spiritual growth, but it's also been about relationships. I surrender and I turn over my life and will to the care of God. Not just for my sake, but for the sake of the people that are engaged in my life that I interact with every day. Because my life and your life impacts the world, whether you like it or know it or not, one person at a time. So this weekend, last weekend, we talked about step A, which I will make a list of people that I've harmed, mentally, emotionally, physically, relationally, maybe even financially, and I'll become willing to make amends. And then step 9, I will make amends wherever, whenever that is possible. Now, in this little lesson here, I want to do two things. Number one is I want to talk about the two list and give you kind of an emphasis on which one really do you focus on, which one will you choose to focus on. And secondly, I want to give you a little bit of some tips on how you can go forward in making amends with step 8 and step 9. So first of all, let's talk about the two list. There are two kinds of relational pain. There's a relational pain that I inflict upon somebody else, and the relational pain that I receive from somebody else. And there is, I'll make a list. And the most natural list that we all make, the one we're the quickest to make, is where somebody else has hurt or harmed me. Because when somebody hurts me, I live with that hurt. I experience that hurt ongoing. I remember that hurt. Or there's another list I can make, and that is a list of people that I've harmed. I can make a redemptive list instead of just a me being hurt list. There's an old movie came out in 1952. I imagine none of you have really seen it or even thought about it. It's called The Quiet Man. And The Quiet Man is about this fella, a boxer, who wanted to go back to his homeland of Ireland and live a quiet life, a tranquil life. The people that were in that movie, you may have heard some of the names: John Wayne, Marina Hare, Victor McLaughlin. And interesting, every single character in this movie had a temper. They had a short fuse. They had an anger issue. I mean, the neighbor does, the priest does, and Victor McLaughlin, who is the old grumpy boxer, he does too. In fact, McLaughlin, the boxer, every time somebody hurt him some way emotionally, relationally, every time somebody said something that offended him or got under his skin, he turned to his assistant and said, "Put that in my book." I mean, he literally kept a book. He literally kept a record of all the ways that people had wronged him. He had a list. And yet Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, keep no record of wrongs. And yet I do. See, ego does. Pride does. Victor McLaughlin did. In fact, we have learned in our past and our current political season, national and state politicians do. And I suspect many of us, you do as well. Now anger is very appealing because anger makes me feel superior. When I am angry and I lash it out upon someone, I am judging them. And when I'm judging them, I am putting myself up here in this superior position, and I'm dehumanizing them and putting them down here at a lower position when I'm holding on to that anger over someone for the harm they have caused to me. I love the way Frederick Buechner puts it. Man, it's a very powerful statement. So I just want to read it to you. It goes like this. And this is from my journal. Of all the 7 deadly sins, anger might possibly be the most fun. To lick your wounds, to smack your lips over past grievances, to roll over your tongue the bitter conversations yet to come, to savor every morsel of all the pain you have been given and all of the pain you will give. It is in many ways a feast fit for a king. The chief drawback is what you are consuming is yourself. The skeleton at the feast is you. You see, at the banquet of anger, the skeleton at the feast is you. So if I go through my life hanging on to that list of people who have harmed me, people who have wronged me, people who have been unjust and unfair, speaking ill or thought ill of me, if I do that, then I will begin to ruminate. I will begin to kind of find ways to punish them, to vindicate myself, and I'll have all these sort of thoughts within my head. Well, they wrong me. I'm a victim. I'm the one that's being wronged here and being hurt here. In fact, I am totally justified in my lashing out and striking out back at them. Anger is a position of power, and anger pushes people away. And when you are a person that gets stuck in angry how people have harmed you, me, we will become the skeleton at the feast. I don't want to do that, and I don't want you to do that. So we got to let go of that list. But there's another list, and that is the list of the people that I have harmed, the list we talked about last weekend. And I look at that list, and I become willing. I move toward becoming willing to go and make things right in that relationship. See, ego or pride always hurts. Love always makes things right. Now, I hope that you're continuing to work on your moral inventory, and I hope at least by now you begin to make your list of people that you have harmed in your own life. And before you go to make amends, before you go to try to make things right, I want to give you a couple of tips to help you do that. That my dad taught me over the years that I kind of hang on to this day. And here's the first one. And actually, the word first works well here, is that followers of Jesus go first. You don't sit around and wait for the person that you have harmed or you think that may have harmed you. You don't wait for them to come back to you, whether it's unjust, unfair, you've been mistreated in part of some way, that followers of Jesus go first. According to the scriptures, you and I are not victim makers, right? Where I'm the victim, we are peacemakers. That's exactly what Jesus said. Blessed are the peacemakers. So the first thing is, hey, followers of Jesus, we go first. And now I want to give you some tips. I mean, that my dad taught me is kind of an old acronym. It is CRAFT, C-R-A-F-T. If you want to write those words down, you're taking note, those letters, C-R-A-F-T, on how to approach someone if you want to make amends. And letter C is for conversational. Get conversational with the person. See, if you were upset and that other person's upset, blood rushes to your brain, and psychologists talk about that your brain gets flooded. And when your brain gets flooded with blood, all of a sudden your ability to reason, your ability to think wisely in a situation, it gets compromised. And you just can't, so the conversation is always steamed and always hot. So if you get conversational, you are trying to unflood your brain. You're not talking about it. You're just developing relational connection with them again. And so when you unflood, you are letting things kind of calm down a little bit. It's kind of like soothing the brain. You can do that by getting connected with God. You can think of scripture. Okay, blessed are the peacemakers. You can think upon yourself. Okay, what Paul has to say. As far as you be at peace with everyone as much as you can, as long as it continues to be at peace with everyone. So you try to get in a conversational tone with them, not talking about the issue, to kind of deflood the brain. Little R is recalling. Recall my contribution to the conflict. Now, we're great at recalling quickly the contribution of the other person to the conflict, what they did. But if you get stuck on what they did, you're not ready to go make amends. You're not ready. You got to unflood your brain first. Remember, James talks about it this way. He says, be slow to speak, be Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. You can't do that if your mind is all flooded. So you got to recall and focus on the way you harmed, not the way you have been harmed. That's letter R. Letter A is apologize. Yeah, you heard me say it. Apologize. There are two general kinds of ways you can describe apologies. The first apology is the sackcloth and ashes apology. Word limp, that seems like an appropriate title. And that is where you are really aware of how you harm that person. And you sincerely, you are so genuine and sincere, it comes across the way, oh man, Johnny, Susan, I am so sorry. I messed up. I know the way I spoke, it hurt you. I know the way what I did, it hurt you. I know that. That is the best and most powerful apology, is one that comes across as sackcloth and ashes, where you really own it. The other kind of apology, not quite as impactful, it's called the apology of impact. And that is when you hurt somebody, but you didn't intend to, but you know you did. And so even though you think you've done nothing wrong, because you're the kind of person who cares for somebody, you go and apologize to them because you know they're hurt, and you do that. That's another good apology. Not as impactful as sackcloth and ashes, but if I've harmed someone, I want them to know I care for them. So I'm going to apologize because I know in some way I've wronged them, even unintentionally. The next word is forgive. And again, I want to read this from Lewis Smedes because I can't say any better than what he did. We're just a great theologian. He says it like this: when someone wounds you, your natural instinct is to get even. Forgiving someone else or asking someone to forgive you, here it comes, is surrendering your felt right to get even, or to be justified that you feel like you were wronged. Wow, you give up your right. Now, I know the more serious the grievance, the more difficult and challenging that is, but forgiving, asking for forgiveness, or giving forgiveness, or forgiving somebody else is the way of Jesus. We're taught that in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive your debtors, your trespasses, those who have sinned against you, right? I'm going to forgive them as I had been forgiven of my own. So I'm going to do that. So letter F is forgiveness. So far we got conversational, in case you're taking notes, you can't remember it all. We got recalling, and then I'm apologizing, and then I'm forgiving, and letter T is for talk about it. Talk about it. Put it, whatever it is, the conflict, put it on the operating table and just talk about it objectively. And you both kind of say, hey, what can we learn from this? How can we grow from this, right? So you're backing up and you're analyzing it. And you're looking at, hey, what were the triggers here? What are the things that happened that even created the conflict? And so you talk about it together objectively. Maybe if it's an important relationship, you go to counseling together. Maybe you read a book together. Maybe you go talk to a pastor together. Maybe you pray together. But somehow you find a way to talk about it in a meaningful way. Now, if you're going to go talk to someone, if you're going to go approach someone to have a conversation about making amends or anything like that, or you have a confrontational or just a complicated relationship, I want to give you one more little tip here to hang on to. Conversations usually end the way they start. Think about that. If you begin explosive, if you begin all fired up, and begin all steamed up and already fired, it's probably going to end that way. So if you're going to go to someone to make amends, or you're going to have a hard conversation with someone, start softly. The starter you soft in a conversational way, the greater the chance it's going to end in a soft, more productive, and conversational way. Now, let me end by saying this. I have been a pastor now for almost 4 decades. I can't believe it, 4 decades. And to this day, I have not yet learned a way to prevent other people or myself from having conflict. It's just not going to happen. I've not found a way to not have conflict in my marriage, with my children, with my daughter-in-laws, with my other in-laws, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, sister-in-law, people I work with, the people down at the bank, people at the dry cleaners. I've just not found a way to do it. But there's another way, and another way is that I can keep a record, a list of the people that I have harmed, that I have brought ill will to in some way or another, and I can become willing to go to them and find a way to make it right and to make it amends, because that is exactly what Jesus did with you and with me. So you got two lists. Which one are you going to focus on? So that's it. We're all done. I hope you have a great time together. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. Invite somebody, and I'll see you this weekend on Palm Sunday weekend.